Professor Hirabayashi. This is just an amazing person. The internment camps, the defiance.
He was a visionary, someone ahead of his time.
His legacy is immense, but it was not widely known until quite recently.
In some ways, he's lost in history.
Gordon wanted to correct injustices.
Gordon, he wasn't afraid to challenge the law. He wasn't afraid to challenge the state.
One person really can change the world, and he's an example of that.
Someone who's got such a legacy, why is he so unknown?
He doesn't stand out in some people's minds in terms of being a major historical figure, and yet he was and is to this day.
Gordon Hirabayashi was born in Seattle in 1918. He was deeply influenced by his parents' pacifist beliefs. This upbringing helped shape his own strong convictions against violence and war.
The family was a Quaker family, which I think was quite important because as dedicated as they were to scholarship, they were also deeply dedicated to peace.
Probably the most fundamental part that reflected itself in my beliefs was the sincerity. They had a very close relationship between the statements of their belief and their behavior, and that impressed me.
Gordon was a friendly, kind, and fairly quiet man. He didn't like to be in the spotlight.
Dr. Gordon Hirabayashi was a normal person who just wanted to live a normal life. And because of his ancestry, he was pushed out of his life course.
The Executive Order 9066 was issued on February 19, 1942. I complied with the curfew, and I lived in a small dormitory right next to the campus. Obeying the order and not getting late and so on was the primary concern, but finally, towards the end of the week, it dawned on me why I should be dashing back and my friends not. And that if I'm an American, what am I doing this for? And so I said, well, if I'm an American, I'm going to act like one. And I turned around and went back. That was the first deliberate, open stance I took. Until then, I'd been going along with it.
In May 1942, he was arrested for defying internment and curfew orders against Japanese Americans during World War II, arguing they violated his constitutional rights. He appealed to the Supreme Court, which upheld his conviction.
He was so strong and so resolute in terms of believing that we should always advocate for what's right. And he took stands that said, no, I'm an American, and if all Americans have certain rights, then I have the same rights.
When my mother pled with me too, she said, I admire what you've done, I agree with you, but if we get separated now, we may never see each other again. If a government could do this sort of thing, they could keep us apart. So please, come with us. And I said, I'd like to, but I just can't go. I wouldn't be the same person if I went now because I took a stand and I can't give it up.
After his release from prison in 1943, he earned his PhD in sociology at the University of Washington and then taught at universities in Lebanon and Egypt for several years. He then made his way back to North America, venturing into unfamiliar territory, chair of the fast-growing University of Alberta Sociology Department in Edmonton.
I went to school at University of Alberta from 1985 to 1990. I had signed up for a Wednesday night class so that I could work part-time while going to school. The professor came in. The first thing he told us was that he was retired, but they couldn't find a teacher, so they had called him. I could tell you nothing about what that class was, but I remember so many stories about what Dr. Hirabayashi told us.
Gordon Hirabayashi came to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to use this as his base to battle racism and to fight for civil rights.
He had a great deal of influence on me. He was a mover and a shaker. He was a good administrator, a good teacher, a good researcher, and he treated his faculty with respect.
Gordon was a chair in the 1960s, and that was a time of extremely rapid expansion in the university system, particularly in Alberta.
He was able to build a kind of community of scholars and like-minded thinkers that were young and energetic.
The department grew rapidly in the 60s. It actually built a very strong sense of community in the department. He was instrumental in hiring a lot of professors. He hired in a variety of areas in race and ethnic relations.
Gordon Hirabayashi selected me to be associate chair when he was chair of the Department of Sociology. Gordon Hirabayashi wisely decided with his department that we should bring students in to sit on our committees.
He spent a lot of time building up students, encouraging students to take active roles in their community.
There was a greater affinity and understanding between students and professors.
The stories that Dr. Hirabayashi shared with us were really about his days as an activist, about addressing the inequities growing up in the United States. He told us really about how angry he was as a citizen to be treated that way in his country. And that really stayed with me because I had no idea as a teenager in Canada that even happened.
One of the first things he did when he got here was create an Indigenous and Métis friendship center. He brought together the first conference in Western Canada to address some of the key issues in the early 1960s.
He knew what it was like to be kind of an outsider. They had to deal a lot with the transition of people from the rural areas to the city. Simple things like taking public transport was a mind-boggler for some. In the 50s, 60s, TB was a big thing in the Native communities. But Gordon was always putting the bug in the ear of people in government, letting them know that, hey, we've got a situation here that's got to be looked after. Because if you don't, it's going to get totally out of control, and then you're going to be in real trouble.
In 1959 and by 1962, he had already developed relationships with Indigenous people in the Métis Nation. He'd already visited the northern parts of our province and recognized the inequalities and disadvantages and worked to form relationships in order to combat that. That's amazing.
That meant so much to the progress, not just of our Friendship Center, but our communities at large. You know, it speaks volumes to where we are today.
He became a Canadian citizen in 1975, where he continued to advocate for the rights of Japanese Americans and Canadians. He was actively involved with the EJCA, serving one term as president and over 20 years as a board member and the newsletter editor.
The EJCA is the Edmonton Japanese Community Association. It is a group formed here in Edmonton, and it started off as just a co-op for JC families in the area to be able to connect with one another.
The roots of the organization go back to shortly after the Second World War. Gordon was quite instrumental in helping the Edmonton Association get established, and his influence over the association is very important. He was a very strong proponent of Japanese culture and celebrating Japanese culture, and so he brought that to the board and as president of the association. He was also the creator of the Moshi Moshi newsletter, which we distribute to this day.
Moshi Moshi got started to keep the community informed about the centennial activities.
Back then it was not handwritten, but typewritten, and there was no photocopy or anything. So it would have been important for the local people to share news and to share their businesses, their big events, not the least of which was redress related during that time.
Redress was the movement by Japanese Canadians to right the wrong that took place during the Second World War. It was important to have an apology, but he thought that individual compensation was vital. The government should have to provide something to individual citizens to atone for this.
People didn't know if redress would be successful or not. Gordon was always optimistic that it would be successful, and that not only in name but through financial compensation as well.
They came in as an alien group to a country where a lot of the people felt was a white man's country. They still think that, There was another thing that they had to cope with. And so objecting to it, even though they felt it was totally unnecessary and totally wrong and it's a discrimination, it wasn't their first line thought to, I'm going to confront this, battle it.
A group of us convened a meeting with Gordon, and I was struck by his gravitas. He spoke to us very sincerely. He said, you need to be able to carry this through. You need to be able to get your message to the government. And he was an inspiration.
In 1988, after decades of advocacy and struggle, a watershed moment arrived.
In August, we had reached a redress settlement. The settlement was announced in Parliament and received a standing ovation from the entire Parliament.
In addition to the official apology and the individual redress payments, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation was established to address racism in Canada.
Gordon was very much behind that. He had provided the impetus, the passion which he conveyed. His commitment to a redress settlement was tremendously well regarded, admired, and indeed loved by so many of the community, because he represented that figure who had been willing to persevere and never really give up on his sense of human rights and commitment to justice.
The Japanese-Canadian redress remains a poignant reminder of the importance of confronting historical wrongs and striving for reconciliation in a nation built on diversity and unity.
He fought on behalf of all. He didn't want to be viewed as the leader. He wanted to be the supporter.
He believed very strongly that we would not have achieved our goals if it was only for his generation.
In his later years, he remained a staunch advocate for civil rights, steadfast in his commitment to justice. His passing in 2012 marked the end of his courageous journey, but his legacy of resilience and principled activism continues to inspire hope for a better future.
Being in that class actually really changed my life, and I really looked at what my values were, and hearing the stories of how he really stood up for injustices in different ways and supported people, really sat with me.
In recognition of his lifelong dedication to justice and civil rights, Gordon Hirabayashi was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States.
It was a powerful moment for those of us who knew him, but it was a powerful moment for the Japanese community in Canada and in the U.S.
Gordon Hirabayashi knew what it was like to stand alone. He took his case all the way to the Supreme Court, and he lost. And it'd be another 40 years before that decision was reversed, giving Asian Americans everywhere a small measure of justice. In Gordon's words, it takes a crisis to tell us that unless citizens are willing to stand up for the Constitution, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
It is exceptionally meaningful as a story of an individual who fought so much injustice and experienced injustice, experienced imprisonment, that in the end, he had that kind of recognition.
To honor Dr. Hirabayashi's legacy, the University of Alberta established a scholarship in his name, encouraging new students to continue his work in advancing human rights and social justice.
His work with the Prince Takamoto Japan Center is a good example of how he's building a legacy, not just for himself, but for others that also are coming after him. And that legacy is ongoing as we continue to fund new scholars through the Gordon Hirabayashi Scholarship.
It's a real privilege to be able to carry on Dr. Hirabayashi's legacy by developing new forms of understanding and reiterating his projects and his interests in human rights. We're helping to create a Gordon Hirabayashi annual lecture in the Department of Sociology that will bring a kind of critical heft on the kinds of things that were of importance to him.
Among the dozen or so students who have won this award, we've seen some really remarkable and interesting research.
I'm the first scholarship recipient of the Gordon Hirabayashi Scholarship, and I was awarded it in 2012.
Being a recipient of this scholarship was a very meaningful and impactful journey to me.
For me, receiving the Dr. Hirabayashi Scholarship was validation in terms of knowing that the work I'm doing is valued and important and a contribution to the scholarly research on human rights.
Students are kind of the future.
As a scholar at the University of Alberta, I'm standing on the shoulders of some great people like Gordon Hirabayashi, who has fought in his life racism and marginalization of people. And I think I'm just building on the work that he has done. I'm happy to be following in his footsteps, his large footsteps, I think.
We speak Blackness as much as Blackness speaks us.
Pan-African Symposium is designed to bring together Black scholars from around the world to tackle a whole range of problems and situations that face the Global South. We're here to listen, and we're here to support those communities that we serve as a university.
We have worked to share his legacy, share his story, include media or works that are about him, such as the Hold These Truths play, written by Jeannie Sakata.
I went to the play and was deeply moved.
I have a glimpse of what ought to be. I seek to live as the ought to be is.
When we opened the center and opened the library, we thought Gordon would be the ideal person to name the library after.
The library was named in his honor. It was a small token of what we could do to say to him that his contributions were noted and certainly appreciated.
Gordon Hirabayashi's legacy is one of unwavering courage in the face of injustice. It is a testament of a long life anchored in principle and integrity and motivated by a deep conviction that societies thrive when justice, peace, and equality are guarded and protected.
So the work that he did, unfortunately, is still relevant because there's still so much work to do.
The world is on the precipice of dangerous and massive change.
We need champions of justice, like Dr. Gordon Hirabayashi, and individuals who recognize that developing a relationship, talking with one another, is one of the first steps in building collaborations and in understanding one another and creating greater equality.
This is a great time, an opportunity to remember Dr. Hirabayashi, that what he has done.
Canadian society owes a great deal to Gordon Hirabayashi. He changed people's understanding of the law. He changed people's understanding of what human rights are and can be. And he did it in the most quiet, competent, and honorable way that I think anyone can act.
It's vitally important that we continue to advocate for human rights and that we do so in a collaborative fashion.
Gordon was a reminder that you mustn't forget what happened because it could happen again.
He was a forerunner, and the reality is we need them. We need the champions of civil society.
You know, I often think that we're like a dandelion seed blown in because We were relocated here against our will during World War II. And since then, you know, we don't have the deep root system that connects us, but like a dandelion on the concrete, the roots try to find a way to find stability and nourishment because they want to grow and flourish. And that's what I think of our JC communities here. That kind of spirit and perseverance, I think, is what Gordon embodied as well.